I'm with Scott Bennett, Director, Multi-Factor Strategies at Invesco. Thank you for participating in the Investment Leaders Forum New Zealand.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's been a wonderful event.
It's a pleasure having you, Scott. Now, you discussed the role of fallen angels, zombies, and glamour stocks in small cap indices. Can you explain how these companies affect and influence the overall performance of the small cap indices and what implications that has for investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So unlike large cap indices, small cap indices are capitalization weighted, but the way companies come in and exit that index are quite different to large cap companies. So for small cap indices, we have successful companies being promoted out and generally unsuccessful companies being relegated in. And what that gives rise to is a disproportionate representation of three types of companies that you mentioned. So fallen angels, which is companies that were previously large that are now small. And then we've got effectively zombie companies. And these are companies that are operating but not actually making a profit. And then third and finally, we've got glamour companies. And these are companies that are on valuations that are unbelievably high, in the order of magnitude greater than 30 times current year's sales.
And with those glamour stocks, Scott, do they become, because they're darlings of the market, they become quite crowded trades quite quickly? And with the influence of non-human investors in the marketplace, if there's the slightest earnings disappointment, they can have some horrendous haircuts.
Yeah, that's right. So those glamour stocks, they're getting a lot of media attention. They're what's talked about a lot within the press. Generally, the cab driver or Uber driver will be talking about it, and it's a new theme within the market. And so it's very well bid up. But what our research shows is that the probability of success for these new thematic types of companies is really, really low. And so to your point, any slight miss on earnings expectations or change in sentiment, and these companies are generally the first ones that fall.
You look at factors when building a portfolio. Could you give us a quick summary of what your investment philosophy is and how it works in practice?
Yeah, so we focus on three factors mainly, largely what we call momentum. And these are companies that have got positive earnings growth or positive price movements. And if you think back to that reference in terms of fallen angels, generally by definition, fallen angels, large companies that are now small, have got negative momentum or what we call anti-momentum. And what our research has shown and others have proven out is that over time, at least over the medium term, those companies with negative momentum generally underperform. And then the other factor that we look at is quality. So these are companies that have very strong balance sheets, very good, stable earnings profiles. And again, if we think about a zombie company or a company that's not actually making a profit, those companies don't generally do well over time. And then the third factor we look at is value. And that's really avoiding buying into these hyped up glamour stocks that we mentioned before.
You proposed in your presentation that systematic small cap strategies can provide greater efficiency and confidence for investors. So what are the key benefits of those systematic solutions compared to traditional active management in the small cap space?
Yeah, so active management in Australian small caps has been highly successful. So before we take into account fees, it's about 5.9% per annum the excess returns that Australian small cap active managers are delivering, which is unbelievably high compared to other equity markets on equity cohorts that we see around the world. So active management within small caps is critical. But where we see the biggest opportunity is that when we look at the returns that get generated by those active managers, close to a third of that return goes to the manager and not to the investor. And we think there's great areas of improvement by just taking a systematic approach and largely generating those returns by avoiding those fallen angels, those glamour stocks, and also those zombies, which we don't think is a very difficult process.
Scott Bennett from Invesco, thank you very much for participating in the Investment Leaders Forum, New Zealand.
Thank you.